Hey libertarians, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I have a returning guest coming on, Julia Turyansky of Brave the World. I first met her and interviewed her on Anarchast about a year and a half ago on episode number 107. And it was literally seconds after I'd seen her first video she had put out for Brave the World, which we'll play later in this episode, again, because it's only 1 minute long and it's really good. But the reason I'm having her back on is she's from Canada, or she's actually not from Canada, she's from Russia, but she lives in Canada, she's a Canadian citizen, and she's an anarcho-capitalist, and she's agreed just today to run for the Libertarian Party of Canada. So we have two in a row here. We had Victor Pross on yesterday, and now we have Julia, who has agreed to do it. And we've talked all about how there's been a bit of a backlash from anarchists, anarcho-capitalists, libertarians, voluntarists, who really hate the political system, who think that we're going against our principles by doing this. But we're not, and we're going to explain a little bit about why, and then we're going to explain about some of the interesting things that we've been discovering about how you have to change to be involved in this system, and how it's been a real interesting sort of a thing for me personally, and possibly for Julia as well, to learn that we have to learn a different language to talk while still keeping to our principles, and just learn how to talk to your regular person on the street about these very sort of quite detailed and intricate sort of concepts. And it's been a learning experience already, and I've only been doing it for about a week, and Julia's only been doing it for about a day, and so we're going to get into all that. So first, Julia, thank you for your service in trying to spread libertarianism in Canada by any means necessary, any nonviolent means necessary, that is. And so thank you for doing that, and congratulations on announcing you're running for the Libertarian Party of Canada.
Thanks. Yeah, it's going to be really fun, and I think I can bring a different side to the philosophy for the Libertarian Party. And Tim is a great guy, and I met him yesterday, and I have no moral qualms in helping him out and helping the party out. And I'm going to stick to a very specific platform. And there's quite a few candidates, so I think if we each pick something to focus on, we'll cover a very wide base, and then we'll target very different sections of Canadian citizens and sections of interest.
Yeah, it's been a total learning experience for me, and you probably will find this as well if you haven't already. For example, we were just talking to Tim Moan last night. He's the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada, past 2 times Anarchast guest, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, Tim Moan, libertarian, of course, and how he was sort of telling us what we're going to have to experience by getting involved in this sort of a thing. We're going to have to get involved in some debates. We're going to have to be out there shaking hands with everyday people on the street and trying to explain to them why the Libertarian Party, or especially why libertarianism in general, can actually help them, as opposed to what they've had in their lives with this left-right paradigm political system to date.
Yeah, and I think that's why I'm picking a very narrow platform, which is gun rights. And, well, it can be summed up in one gesture. Right? That's how straightforward I'm going to be. The ability to own a gun is parallel with freedom. That's basically it. And then, of course, there's very specific things in Canada, like we need to stop treating our lawful and peaceful gun owners as default criminals. We need to repeal Section 91 and 92 of the Criminal Code, which basically states that I'm a gun owner and I have a license. If my license expires, which it's expiring next year, and I forget, I can go to jail for a year because now I'm not legally an owner of that gun. Even though I acquired it legally, I passed my license, I did my test, I did all the paperwork. If I'm aloof, I am a criminal by those codes. We also need to reclassify the firearm, that a firearm is a tool, not a weapon, because right now the default definition of a gun is a weapon in Canada, which is an unfair classification. And, we're supposed to be treating people innocent until proven guilty, right? But we have a reverse onus in Canada when it comes to firearms. You are guilty until proven innocent. And there was a very famous case with Ian Thompson, who was defending his home against a pack of hooligans who literally like Russian Molotovs into his basement. They threw Russian Molotovs into his basement. They set his house on fire. They were aggressing against him. He took out his properly stored firearm, and it was properly stored because he was actually a firearms instructor. And he shot 2 warning shots into the air, and the guys ran away, and he had to deal with, I think, 6 years of being dragged through the courts by the government, and eventually he was found innocent for self-defense, but they were still trying to prosecute him for improper storage of firearm because apparently he acquired his gun way too fast for it to have been reasonably stored. So the whole narrative in Canada about liability and self-defense needs to be completely built up from the ground, because right now it's atrocious. And I would even, I'm an anarchist, but in this case, I would be completely in favor of self-defense legislation that gives the person who is defending their property and themselves the benefit of the doubt and reverses the opus to innocent until proven guilty.
That's interesting, because you brought up at the beginning about how we're pretty much all about repealing things. So repeal all of these very horrible laws that have victims. They force people to do things from the government. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you just said, and I was thinking, this is again why I say this has been so interesting for me to get into this political realm and still stick to my moral principles of the non-aggression principle. So in your mind, and I'm just thinking here, I don't even know, in your mind, can we actually pass legislation that actually makes someone do something, or what do you have in mind for this legislation?
Well, it's kind of like it's the opposite, right? It's a very odd because right now, so in America, you're innocent until proven guilty. Again, this is not true, but that is the standard that's supposed to be followed. In Canada, that's the standard too for everything else. But for firearms owners, the onus is the opposite. So you're guilty until proven innocent. So that's the same thing with your license running out. Your license runs out, and even though you didn't commit a crime, you're guilty of possessing a firearm illegally. That's not the way the law is supposed to work. So it's like this weird convoluted thing that you have to pass legislation to reverse onus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes some sense.
Yeah.
My brain's churning here thinking about it.
Yeah, that's the legal system. It's complete crap.
Yeah, I have a hard time understanding how it all works because
Right.
it's just such garbage to begin with. But I guess what you're sort of proposing there is that would be in favor of actually passing some sort of legislation that, I guess it's sort of just repealing this past legislation, really, is what it's doing. It's not creating any sort of victim or not initiating.
It's like a common sense law. It's like the stand your ground thing, right? So it's guaranteeing your right to your life and your self-defense and your property through passing a law, because apparently that's not common sense anymore. So this is the stage that we got into, that we have to pass laws saying that you're innocent until you're proven guilty. That's insane. But if we don't have it, then you get worse consequences. You get things like I mentioned with the case of Ian Thompson, who was dragged through the court system for 6 years because he was assumed guilty until proven innocent.
Gotcha.
Right.
Yeah. This is why it's so interesting and been fascinating for me, and it's going to be a real learning experience. And we'll talk a bit more about that. But let's focus still on the gun sort of issue. Mm-hmm. That's definitely something that you're passionate about, and that was your first thing that really caught my attention. And I'm going to play that video right now, just so you guys can see why I really liked it. So here's that video.
Thanks, Jeff.
I'm only a young girl, and I know little of the ways of guns, but I know that everybody should own one. Imagine someone's breaking into your home. Instead of letting them take the things you worked hard for, instead of hiding and hoping they won't find you, instead of them finding you, hurting you, raping you, or killing you, and instead of praying the police get there in time, give them this visual. This might just inspire them to leave you alone. After all, assholes have some of the strongest instincts of self-preservation. You have rights, and those are great on paper, but guess what? You don't want to hope that they're later enforced in court. You want their spirit to protect you in the moment. Guns literally even the playing field. Guns are equal rights, and that's a beautiful thing.
So as you can see, really, it really just sort of drives it home, and so passionate. And I think that's the kind of thing that Julia can really sort of bring to what we're trying to do in Canada, is to put out things like that and sort of shake up the status quo a little bit, and say things that people have been kind of scared to say, and stand up and say things like guns are self-defense. And the major problem, and of course, there's a whole feminist movement now too that maybe you can talk about a little bit, where they say everyone's raping them all the time, and so therefore we have to put all I'm obviously sort of exaggerating here, but that's sort of what a lot of them are saying, and so we have to put like most men in jail. I'm exaggerating again, but that's sort of the general thing that I'm getting from it. It's like, well, women should have the right to protect themselves. That's the best way for women, who are, in general are less physically large as men, and therefore vulnerable. And of course, there's the whole sexual side to it, where men really do want women sexually. And so if they see someone who is sort of doesn't have the ability to protect themselves, there is a possibility that some guys at some points in time, and this has obviously happened in the past, will take advantage of that situation. And so for feminists or people who really feel like they're under threat from sexual violence, the answer is to enable self-defense and to make it not illegal.
Well, this reminds me of a movement in Spain during World War II against fascism by a group called the Free Women, and they all armed themselves, and they were huge feminists, but their philosophy was that feminism runs in parallel with anti-statism, and the two things combined create freedom. And the only way that they could fight the state was by arming themselves. We see the same thing happening in Rojava, where they're fighting ISIS and the totalitarian regimes there, and the oppressive anti-female regime, right? And they are armed women, they are protecting themselves, and without guns, guess what? The males would come in and kill and rape them and enslave them and kill them.
I heard about this group. Do you know much about them? I just saw one news article, and it was like all these quite... Yeah, I don't even know. I don't know much about it,
so
but it said they were a bunch of anarchists. Yeah, it said like they're a bunch of anarchist women, and a lot of them were quite attractive, and they're all standing there with these guns. I was like, that looks really cool, but I didn't know if it was real or not. Do you know much about it?
Yes. So they have a bad reputation because the original group was the PKK, which started out as an extremist, socialist, separatist group from Turkey. And they actually since then have completely redesigned their philosophy. Their leader is in jail, and he has written entire books on their new communal anarchist system. So that's why they have a bad rep, and they're classified as a terrorist group by most of the EU. But there's also other sanctions. There's like the PKK, the PYK, and they all work together. And it's the region of Rojava, which is on the border of Syria and Turkey. And they are actually like a de facto anti-government. So they don't have a government, they govern themselves. Their philosophy is train every single citizen to be the police so that we don't have to have a police force. And they are actually doing this. This isn't just some people writing it. They are in a war zone. They have 50%, like they have 50% females and males on their councils and on their direct democratic like where they make this decision. So they have councils, and they still have a way to distribute their decision making, right? But it's not a centralized government, and they're actually, like, think of where this is. This is on the border of Syria and Turkey, and they are completely accepting of all religions. They're completely accepting of all sexes. They don't discriminate on anything. So this is like a true anarchist movement happening right under our noses, and nobody is giving them any airtime or any attention because of this like terrorist label. But they are the strongest force against ISIS right now. They're doing more against ISIS than America. And
well, America is ISIS, I should point out.
Right.
It's Dick Cheney's group of terrorists. But so no one's been covering this? Like,
not much.
Why don't
I'm going to be doing a video about it.
Awesome.
I have some contacts there that have been giving me some information. And
do they speak English?
Most of them speak English. A lot of the videos I've seen online, there are English-speaking people there. They're all educated, and everybody has to take a course in nonviolent resolution, conflict resolution, and feminism before they get a gun. So they have a very, it's not just like a free-for-all. They have a very regimented training, philosophy, and they are there on the front lines killing ISIS. And ISIS, they're absolutely horrified, because when an ISIS soldier is killed by a woman, they are shamed and they go to their version of hell. You do not get killed by a woman if you're an ISIS, right? So it's absolutely beautiful.
These people sound amazing. I'm glad you're doing a video on it.
Yeah.
And if they are true anarchists, and it sounds like, from what you've told me, it sounds like they are, please try to connect me somehow to have one of them on Anarcast, because this is amazing.
I think that would give them some good exposure. I definitely will.
Yeah, amazing. Let's not talk too much about that. Let's do that in the future. Let's focus on where we're at right now. We were on this phone call with Tim Moan, and it made me realize I have to learn yet another language. I've sort of throughout my life spoken at times French, Chinese, Thai. I speak Spanish right now. I've forgotten all my French and Chinese and Thai for the most part, Cantonese, and I think a few others. And I was in the shower this morning after talking with Tim last night. Just, that's where you have your ideas a lot of times, in the shower. And I was like, wow, I have to learn a different language now, because we're on a different platform here. And I was just thinking, because he brought up something about, so how would you answer this question? I didn't really have a good way that I would answer that to. You're just sort of your average person on the street, to get my point across on why I think, or I know, libertarianism can help them. So I was just thinking, as one example, if I'm in some town hall meeting or something, and older lady stands up and she says, "How are you going to protect my Social Security check?" I was thinking in the shower, I don't have a really good answer that's going to make a lot of sense to her off the top of my head. So I'm going to have to think about how I answer the questions like that.
You could even say something like, do you feel that the current government has protected your Social Security to its best ability? Because I know that my parents lost $20,000 in their, government issued savings.
Yeah. And the one question that Tim brought up, and he had a great answer to it, was in Canada, there's so many people indoctrinated to believe that the reason Canada is so special and so great is because it has universal health care. And do you remember what Tim said to the answer to the guy who said that if you want to take away my health care, you're going to have to take away from my cold, dead hands? Do you remember what he said to that?
He says, well, I'm a volunteer paramedic, so actually issue health care, not take it away.
Yeah, so he had figured out this political answer that would get everyone clapping and stuff.
Ovation, yeah.
And actually, after I mentioned in the call, I said I have a good answer to that one for sure, because I'm from Canada and I've seen the medical system and it's atrocious. And now that I've been around the world, here in Mexico, it's amazing and it's all privatized. And I'm not saying, so I have to come up with this answer I have to speak a different language here to kind of get it through to them. But Tim pointed out that what you want to do in these sort of political sort of things is sort of go to the your own personal sort of emotional story. And actually I have one, and as I mentioned to you, in that my own mother she doesn't read my stuff or listen to my stuff. She's not really on the internet. And I've always been very against getting a lot of these vaccines, because I know a lot about a lot of them. Not all of them. I don't know about all of them, but the swine flu vaccine, for example, I knew that was total BS from the time
totally
that it came out.
Yeah.
I just knew it was something, it wasn't right. And I just warned everyone. I said, first of all, I don't think swine flu is dangerous. And I was proven right on that.
My friend had swine flu. He was like, I was in bed for a week, no big deal.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure we should all be rushing out to get these things with mercury in them and all kinds of stuff. We don't even know what's in them, just pumped into our body to make sure we don't get this thing that doesn't even look that dangerous. And they just did it again with the measles. And I was like, is measles really a major issue? I don't, And so she doesn't read my stuff. So she actually went to the doctor for one of her checkups. And he sort of said, you should really get the swine flu vaccine. And she didn't know what I'd been saying about it. And she took it. The next day, she was dancing at one of her dance classes, and she fell down because her legs were all of a sudden paralyzed. And it turns out that the swine flu vaccine, I just went on Google and I put in swine flu vaccine can't walk. And there's literally thousands of people who've had this problem where they took the vaccine and then they're essentially paralyzed in one way or another. And she was paralyzed essentially from the waist down from the vaccine itself. And so here's my story, and I have to figure out how to condense this, because as Tim pointed out, you have to kind of answer these things in 10 or 20 seconds a lot of times, and I'm not good at that, as you can tell right now. But the end of the story is that so she was paralyzed, and she wanted to go see her doctor to find out why all of a sudden she was paralyzed, and she had to wait 8 months to see the doctor. So I have to figure out how to say that story in about 10 or 20 seconds, right? So that's why I'm saying this has kind of been a learning experience. I think this is going to be good for us to do, because we as anarchists, as libertarians, we have to learn how to talk to your average everyday person, or they're never going to get it. They're not going to get these big, long things that we write. And that's why I think what you do is so good, because you're able to put these videos together that are sometimes just a couple minutes and get your point across that really will speak to people who don't know about a lot of the things that we know about.
The healthcare thing is very difficult, Jeff, because Canadians are so emotional and touchy about it. Maybe the way to approach it is to say, well, would you like the waiting lines cut in half for everybody? Yes. So you create a private option, and those who have the money or are willing to spend the money can go there, and those who don't have the money won't have to wait as long. And then you can quote how many people die in waiting rooms every year in Canada, which is a huge number. I think it's the highest number in the first world.
Yeah, it's not just waiting rooms. Because I'm from there, I've had to go to the hospital for a few things, a few injuries I've had. And they weren't life-threatening, but they were very, very uncomfortable. And I'd like someone to look at it, not like 3 weeks later, but like today or tomorrow if possible. And the only way to do that in Canada, where I was from in Vancouver, was to go to the emergency room. And you're sitting in there with like people who are just bleeding to death. Yeah, that's the only way to get anyone to even, otherwise you're going to have to wait weeks. So yeah, you're really good at this. I'm not very good at it yet. I've realized that's a great answer. So you just come back with a very simple, would you like waiting times cut in half? That's what we're proposing. And then they probably won't even ask how we plan to do it, because a lot of people don't really think too much about how these things work. But it's essentially, for people who don't know, in Canada, it's illegal to offer private medical services. So Tim Moan mentioned last night that his answer to the medical care thing as well was that he decided to go on a special diet. I don't know what diet it was, and he wanted to check his blood every couple of weeks just to make sure that everything was going well. And of course, you can't really do that. He actually had gone to the doctor, and the doctor had said, no, this is unnecessary, so you're not allowed to do it. And he's like, well, but I want to do it. I just want to. And it's actually illegal in Canada to go and get a blood test unless it's paid for by the Universal Medicare system or whatever it's called. So yeah, this is going to be very interesting. And already, I've only been doing this for a week, this has been eye-opening on so many different angles we can take on things to wake up the public to very libertarian ideas that will improve their lives.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to get criticized by a lot of ANCAPs, I think, but my response to that is, I don't believe in the political system, but I believe in myself, and I believe in you guys, and we're part of the political system, whether we like it or not. Unless you live in a cabin out in, the outskirts of Nunavut, you are part of the political system. You've been forced to be part of it. You don't have to play the game, but you're always going to be part of it. So you might as well play it. And you might as well have fun if you do play it. And I think you and I are going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're good. One thing I've always noticed about you, you're so smart, and you've always got amazing answers to everything that really make a lot of sense. Like, I'm not that good at that kind of thing. I don't know what I'm good at. My wife calls me the pretty face, and I hope I'm a little bit more than that. But she goes, no, you're just the pretty face. People listen to you, you just start talking, they start listening. But I'm not really.
It's those eyes, Jeff. It's those eyes.
I don't know, but you're really. It's amazing how young you are. Sorry, it sounds like I'm like pumping you up or building up your ego here, but I mean it. Like, you're so young and you're so well spoken that I think you could really make a lot of people take attention in Canada by what you're doing, because you're going to say these things, just as you've been saying, out in public to other people. And I think a lot of people are going to go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's tricky. Canadians love the state. They love their government. They love their socialism. They absolutely adore it. But I think I'm being unfair, because these are the Canadians that are like in the central hubs of Canada, so in the main cities, in the major cities, on the border of America. But everywhere else, you drive, like I go to a gun club about an hour and a half away from my suburb, and there it's as though you're in the south of America. It's very libertarian. It's very old school. Everyone's so relaxed and chill. At the same time, they're very, like law abiding. Like they take their, gun laws very seriously because they know that if they don't, they'll be taken away from them. But they also fight it. They also have their own way of fighting it. They also, as soon as there's a ban on a specific firearm, they all buy it up. And it's very communal, and there's a strong community there. So I think my goal is to target the kind of city folk. And like my instructor, when I did my gun license, he told, it's actually legal to have my shotgun loaded with the safety or with a safety lock or in a safety case in my front seat of my truck. And I can drive through downtown Toronto with it. But don't do it because the cops in Toronto don't know the laws about guns and they will arrest you.
Or shoot you.
Or shoot you, right? So this is, I'm going to be probably running for the area of the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area. And if I can target the people there and change their mentality, like the main thing is to just change the mentality of people, because after that you can do the paperwork stuff. That'll pass easier if you have the support of the public. If people are just educated and they realize it's not a scary thing, and like if a 100-pound girl can wield a shotgun safely, that's a pretty good image.
Yeah, totally. And it gets people's attention, gets them thinking. And that's what we need to do. A lot of people have been so indoctrinated in the 12 years of government indoctrination camps, and they come home in Canada and they watch the government news channel, which I can't believe even exists. The government has the news channel in Canada, CBC, and people watch it like it's, like it's real news. And it's like that's the only viewpoint. This is like, and it's always, of course, very status nationalistic. And so they haven't heard these things. They're sort of brainwashed. And by getting a lot of people out there like yourself, myself, Victor Pross, Tim Moan, Walter Block's going to come up and talk. Even Wendy McElroy got back to me today and said that she'd be open to speaking. She's not open to running because she says it goes against her principles. I didn't push her too much on it because I don't think it really does, but maybe I don't understand exactly all of her principles. But she said she'd be willing to possibly participate in our Liberty Tour across Canada. So we'll just get like our angle out there in the public. And this has been the issue with us anarcho-capitalists or even just libertarians, is a lot of us just don't, we dislike the system so much that we're just not even willing to even speak to the people that are in this system. And that's not going to get us anywhere if the majority of people in any area have never even heard what we're talking about and we don't talk to them. We need to talk to them. And that's sort of what the political system in one sense is a conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm doing a very narrow platform, but I have a lot of I have different roads I want to take. Like I want to hit the gun and the people who know about gun rights already, the people who know nothing, and then I might even take like a kind of a feminist angle, because in Canada that's pretty it's pretty big. And I mean, going back to Rojava, my thinking is, we're all spoiled. We don't have a very high crime rate, but things do happen. And if you're a woman alone at home and you have children, or you're pregnant, or you're just alone, and a dude breaks into your house, what are you going to do? You're going to hope you can get to the phone in time. You're going to hope that the cops are going to come and help. Like, you don't have that hope runs out pretty quick in the minute that it takes them to find you in the house, right? So, I mean, a gun is cheaper than a security system. It's easier to take care of than a dog. It's more reliable than the police force, and you get to feel safe at night.
Yeah, I'm from Canada, and I keep saying that because we have a worldwide audience, so I forget that they might not remember that, but I've said it enough times now that they probably do know. And I kind of grew up with the whole guns are kind of bad sort of thing, always around me. And I never owned a gun. I didn't even know, I never even looked into it. That's sort of like a lot of the Canadian mentality. Not, as you pointed out, there is a lot of gun ownership in Canada, especially once you get outside of the major cities, it's a lot more gun friendly. But when you're in the cities, and I'm a total city boy, if you took me out camping, I'd be dead in less than 24 hours. I don't know how to, I'm just useless. I admit that completely. I'm just a city boy. I like computers and I like air conditioning and I like going to nice restaurants and I like going to nice bars. And when I'm out in the woods, I don't know what to do. So I never even considered having a gun because, first of all, I just thought it was sort of illegal. A lot of people don't know, and I don't even know the laws. You probably know them a lot better than me, and you can talk about that when I'm done my little story here. But I just assumed it was illegal to have a gun, so I'd never even thought of having a gun. Now that I came down to Mexico, and everyone down here seems to have guns, and I never even thought about having a gun. And we got one or two. And it felt awesome. Like, it just felt so nice. It's like, holy cow. Now, like as soon as you have one, it's like, because I can sort of protect myself anyway. But if people were to come to my house with guns, I probably couldn't beat them all off with my boxing and 30-year-old kung fu and martial arts training. And just having that gun right, in the house there, it just sort of feels like, you feel like independent. You feel like it's so empowering. It's such a nice feeling. And I know there's a lot of people who are a bit more, aggressive or violent, who when they have a gun, they feel like, oh, I'm going to go out and, use it against other people or something. I don't feel that way at all. I just feel like if anyone ever does that to me, yeah, I feel so much like I can totally take care of myself. It's really empowering.
Yeah. Well, that mentality doesn't exist with peaceful gun owners. The whole, if you go to any gun range or any gun club, the number one thing is you don't point at anything unless you intend to shoot it. You handle your gun appropriately. And there's rules to the extent of when you're going to change your targets, you're not even allowed to use binoculars to look at the people because it's unnerving. So it's very, very respectful to people's safety, not only their actual safety, but their feeling of safety. And again, if people are scared of guns, okay, if you're scared of it, you do realize you don't actually ever have to kill anybody to defend yourself. Let's imagine a situation in your home. Some guy break you up. I've had 3 stalkers in my very short time being an adult female. Okay, 3 stalkers in the past year and a half. One of them actually threatened me with sexual violence and then actual violence. I had to sleep with a gun at the people's houses I was staying. This was in Washington. This happens to women a lot. And just imagine yourself, you're in your house, the freaking guy goes crazy, finds out where you live, breaks into your home, he's unarmed. Lock yourself in your room, get your gun, and tell him, I have a gun. If you come in here, I will shoot you. That is all it takes. If he's crazy enough to come in, shoot his freaking legs. You don't have to kill anybody. The mentality isn't, oh, I have a gun in my house. You come in and I don't know who you are, I'm going to shoot you. That is not how people think. Nobody actually ever wants to hurt anybody. And from my experience at gun ranges and gun clubs, people are scared to death of hurting somebody. And and PorcFest, for example. At PorcFest, you have people with AK-47s walking around, and people are drinking and doing drugs. And PorcFest has never had a single violent result from a gunshot on those premises ever, because
that's why they say there's never a mass shooting at a gun range. It's over pretty quick at the very least.
Yeah, everyone is very careful. If you went through the trouble of being enthusiastic about guns and owning guns, you're very, very safe. And I think part of my campaign is going to be, I'm not a gun enthusiast, I'm a freedom enthusiast. And it's true. I don't know every single type of gun. I only have one gun in my home. I don't go to the range every day. I'm not really a gun enthusiast, but I can appreciate what the tool does for my freedom.
Yeah, totally. I have another story. I had a Canadian friend down here recently, and it was New Year's. No, it was Christmas Eve, and a lot of people New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve or something. No, it wasn't Christmas Eve. You don't fire guns on Christmas Eve. It must have been New Year's Eve, and a few people took out their guns. This is very normal in Mexico, and at midnight shot off a few shots. And my Canadian friend was like, he was almost like scared just looking at the gun, right? And he said, I really don't like guns. And I said, okay, well, you don't have to come near it or whatever. I don't know why you're scared of an inanimate object. But so a few people fired it off, and he kind of like the sound of it, kind of like his eyes opened like really big. And he was like, whoa. And he said, let me try to fire one. And he fired, and he just saw him, and he was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So like a lot of people have this like irrational fear of guns, but they've never even fired a gun. And there's actually a video on the internet of liberals in the U.S. who, for the most part, not all, but a lot, are very anti-gun. But none of them have ever fired a gun. So they brought these liberals to a gun range, and they just loved it. They just thought it felt so empowering, I think. That's the same way I felt. It just felt like empowering to know that you can have something if you need it to protect yourself, and it's powerful. And so, I think you can spread a lot of that sort of idea up there in Canada.
That's a really, really good point, Jeff. And people make, Jeffrey Tucker makes this point with Bitcoin a lot. He said he didn't really think much of it. And then he sent his first Bitcoin transaction. He was like, oh, he danced around the room. It's the same thing. You need to experience it. And I dated a very liberal Canadian guy when I was in my teens, and he was a movie maker, and we would run around with fake guns and all this stuff. And we were actually we had the SWAT team ambush us 2 times, pointing guns at us because they thought we had real guns. So he was very into the violent movies and all of this and the video games. But no, he wouldn't go to a gun range with me because he heard that if you fire a pistol, it could sometimes jam. Keep firing until you shoot yourself in the head. That's the kind of propaganda that is spread by the liberals in Canada.
Wow. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be fun, as you pointed out. It's been just amazing to me. It's been an educational experience just doing this for the last week. I think this is going to improve myself in many ways by making me think outside the box, making me do things I've never done before. I always find that's always interesting and educational, just to put yourself in a situation and make yourself have to, succeed in that situation, and that's in the political sort of situation here. So just so people know, so we now have past Anarchast guests Victor Pross, Julia Taransky. We have, of course, Tim Moen, the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada. I believe Katie Chown's considering. She's the past leader of the Libertarian Party, past Anarchast guest. So we might have quite a few past Anarchast guests running for the Libertarian Party of Canada. So, and like I pointed out, it's just been fun and educational. So if there's anyone out there that you're in Canada, and even in the US or whatever, I think they should do this in countries around the world. If you're a anarcho-capitalist or anarchist or voluntarist, all these words, and just go out and do this. Start up. I'm hoping to have the Pirate Party in Sweden. I don't know much about them, but it sounds like they were anarchists that started a very a popular political party in Sweden. So I'm hoping to have him on Anarchast. So, I think we got to get out there. I'd love to see an anarchist in every political debate. I think it would just be amazing to bring in our ideas into the public sphere, into your average everyday person's life.
I think I have a direct email to the woman who is second in command of that party. I could pass it on to you if you like.
I've actually already contacted. His name's Rick Valcringe or something.
Okay, great.
And it's kind of funny. I just thought of it. And then the first person I emailed was past Anarchast guest Suzanne Tarkowski-Tempelhof, who's from Sweden. And I said, have you ever heard of this guy? And she's like, yeah, he's in my house right now. I was like, okay. It's amazing how awesome. We're quite a community all together. And I said, really awesome. Will he come on Anarchast? She's like, yeah, of course. So I'll hear about his story because I don't know about the whole story. And I think it really pertains to what we're trying to do in Canada as well. And just sort of see what problems they had, because I heard they did have some problems. Apparently, from what I understand, and this is total just hearsay, that they were quite anarchist. They actually were super popular. They actually got into government, and then a bunch of the so-called anarchists turned into complete social justice warrior types who were trying to pass all kinds of laws to, aggressive laws to make people do things they otherwise wouldn't, which isn't the anarchist way. So we have to be careful with that. I'm sure we're going to get co-opted if we get popular. I'm sure as we get more popular, we're going to get attacked like crazy. And we're just going to have to learn how to deal with that. But there's always, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be, I think this is, when I first started a couple weeks ago, I just thought it just felt right. And now I'm thinking this is going to be a total exciting journey that's going to be fun. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be educational. So I highly recommend to people. And so if you're Canadian, go to libertarian.ca/candidates, or just go to libertarian.ca website and click on candidates. And there's just a small form there to fill out to say if you're interested in being a candidate. If we can get over 300 of those in Canada, we will be on the national platform. Tim Moen will be in the Prime Murderer, Prime Sinister debates, and he will be saying very libertarian things, just like Ron Paul did, and that changed a lot and created a huge upswell in libertarianism in the U.S., and I think we can do that in Canada with people like Julia and many others.
And I hate people who dismiss Ron Paul just because he's a politician. I think it's such narrow-minded thinking, and I just remember I was 16, 17, and I was watching Ron Paul the first time he ran, and I was just, I didn't have too much of an idea, a well-rounded idea about his politics, but I remember turning to the person I was with and I said, I wish that guy was my grandfather. And if I were to vote for anyone, I would vote for him because he seems to be the only honest person up there. And it turns out that that was true. He was the only honest person up there. And I think people miss the big picture when they totally dismiss that kind of, it's a circus, but you can't dismiss the circus because it's such an integral part of America right now. And if you want to see it gone, you know, it's not going to be gone in the way that you might want it. There's many different ways to tackle it, and maybe the only way that we can overcome the current systems is by hundreds of different approaches.
Absolutely. That's what I was just thinking, was that we all have our own unique approaches. For example, you, pretty young, blonde Russian girl who's also incredibly intelligent and who also has incredible passion about gun rights and self-defense sort of things. So you bring that angle. Then a person like myself, I'll be sort of like the businessman guy, the capitalist guy or whatever, who's done business around the world, and I'll be bringing that approach. So if there's people out there and you've got your own approach, all those things hit different segments of the population in different ways. Some people are going to hate me. Some sort of liberal types are going to go, oh, he's like a capitalist and that's bad. So they'll just dismiss me completely right off the bat. Whereas they might go, oh, well, Julia, she seems really nice and that sort of thing. They might like her, or they might hate Julia because they don't like whatever. And, so we got to get like a whole diaspora of personalities and types out there, all talking essentially the same language and hitting every segment of the market. And I think that's one way we can really change things, if that's the goal, right? And I don't know if it's crazy. I've gotten a few people tell me recently, they don't say it directly, but they sort of allude to the fact that you can't really change anything. You should just sit in life and sort of look at it like it's a movie. And I understand a little bit of what they're saying, but to me, it just doesn't feel right to not want to try to contribute to something I think is right and in a change that I think is positive.
Well, I think human beings have the right to shape their own reality. And that's what's been taken away from us. We are participating involuntarily in a system that shapes our reality for us. And the first step is to not allow that. And whether, it's battling the dairy board or, making blogs about sex work rights or gun freedom or lowering the income tax or more rights for small businesses. One person can't tackle everything. Not everyone's a Ron Paul, right? You can pick your own angle and you can go ahead. But the last thing I want is people on their freaking Facebook and emailing and all of this, these keyboard critics and keyboard warriors criticizing people in the movement, without actually ever doing a single freaking thing themselves. So, the best way to criticize is to do better, right?
Absolutely.
That's how you stick it to someone. Otherwise, you have absolutely no leg to stand on, so don't open your mouth.
Yeah, I think Chris Cantwell calls it the 101st chairborne, the keyboard warriors. And one thing I know and you know as well is the internet, you're going to get, no matter what, you're going to get criticism and you're going to get a lot of hate, no matter what you do. If you try to do anything, you're going to get a certain
if you're
percentage.
saving kids in Africa, you're gonna, you're still gonna be trolled.
Yeah, 10% of the people are going to go, this person's not doing something right or something, or I don't like how they're doing it. And
You do it then. You freaking do it. Like, I'm not getting paid for this. Like, you do it. I'm not privileged to do it. Anybody can try, right?
Yeah, when I first announced this, I think I shocked a lot of people, right? Because I think there's a certain amount of people that they kind of really like what I've been talking about for the last 5 years, and they get really into it. And then when I do something that seems to appear to go against what I've been saying, it really shocks people and gets them angry. And I saw that for the first couple of days. But then I just started explaining what I'm trying to do, and pretty much most of the criticism is gone now. So I think we're all, already just a week in, we're already past most of that.
Thanks for taking all the heat before before me. To me, this is essentially an awareness campaign. That's it. Yeah. And I think that's, ideas are the most powerful thing. And if we can help Tim get loads of press, that would be awesome. And listen, if Tim could actually achieve one thing on the Libertarian Party's agenda, and then the public sees that it works, dude, the floodgates are open.
Yeah, there's so much potential for massive change, and I've mentioned this a few times. People want change right now. You can just see it. No one likes what's going on, but they don't know how to change it. And a big part of that is they don't know anything about libertarian ideas. They've never been told this stuff. So what we first have to do is get out there and get in front of them in one way or another. And through the political system, you can do that fairly easily. And I'm not saying that's the only way. I'm just saying it's one way to do it, and get them to think and get them to go home and go on Google and look it up, and then they'll go, well, that makes a lot of sense. So the potential for change right now is actually massive, because the status are just in massive decline. No one likes it. No one's happy. We're going to see more and more riots. People, but they don't know what to do. And so some people go out and they'll break a window or light something on fire. That's not going to fix anything. We need to get this message out to them. So, and it actually shows them some hope. And I know Barack Obama used the whole hope and change thing, and I just mentioned change and now hope, but this is actual real hope and change. And so if we can get that in front of people, we could see a massive upswell. We might be massively underestimating what we're just about to embark on.
Yeah, and people are they're quick to criticize the riots in America, the youth riots, the black riots, and they're violent and they're breaking small businesses. And I almost support the riots. I believe in non-aggression, but at the same time...
Front page of the National Post tomorrow, Julia Taransky supports riots. See, we have to watch how we say things now.
No, I know. They are reactionary to their environment, right? These people they don't have jobs, they're poor, they're angry as fuck, right? They're so angry. And they've been beaten up. They have been literally beaten up by the police, by the government, by the welfare system that has enslaved them. And these riots are a reaction to their times, to their environment. So, if they were doing nothing, that might be even worse. Of course, a riot isn't the optimal way, but it just shows, it's like when you back an animal into the corner and it attacks you, it just doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I feel that way as well. It's not like I'm saying that these people rioting are horrible at all. I think that it's sad that they've been put into the situation, and it's all caused by this. They're victims caused by this system. If you look at Ferguson, I believe the report came out. I think I'm just estimating numbers here, but I think there's 10,000 people who live in Ferguson, and I think there's about 9,800 who are wanted under some sort of arrest warrant.
Oh my God.
So it's literally almost every single person in the city is wanted. And
but that's great. Overwhelm the system, right? That's hilarious.
Well, not for them, because they're walking down the street. If a cop stops them, they're in a life or death situation over probably something that they never did anything wrong. It's probably something like they not trespass, something without a victim, right? Something like they smoked marijuana or something.
It's like
right?
dragnet imprisonment, right? It's like you were there, so you're guilty.
Right. So, yeah, I totally understand. Yeah.
It's a tricky situation. Like all I'm saying is like not to people dismiss, the violence. Like you can't dismiss violence. Violence happens as a reaction to something. It needs to be paid attention to.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, we need to get this message out there more. Those people in Ferguson, I wrote like a thing about, or where was the last one? There's one like every couple of weeks now in the U.S. In Baltimore. I wrote an open letter to them just saying, there's other options here. You can privatize the police and things like that, or defend yourself and ask that there is no police. It won't happen overnight or anything, but they don't hear these other things. And so that's how we can get into, you don't have to get into the political system either. You could, like at Ferguson and Baltimore and all these places, people like all these slime bags like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton show up and go, no, we gotta, do this or whatever. And it's all just BS. We need to just get out there in the communities and spread our message. And a lot of people are. I'm seeing it on YouTube. I'm seeing it all over the place. We're obviously not getting in the mainstream media yet, but that's why I think it's important we get involved in the political system, because if we're running in every riding across Canada, they can't just totally ignore us. They have to at least say something. Like, you can't ignore a political party that's in every riding all of a sudden out of the blue. You can't just not mention it.
It's political pain. It's my friend Trace Mayer. He's a big Bitcoin guy.
Yeah, he's a past Anarchast guest, a good friend of mine as well.
He's great, and he has this idea of starting a big Bitcoin fundraising campaign for Rand Paul, and he's an anarchist. Like, he doesn't like politicians, but he's like, if we support Rand Paul with Bitcoin, that makes national news, and we can just bring political pain to the whole system. It'll be great. It'll just be a great awareness campaign, right? And he's right. Like, and he wants to do a whole website, and like for because Rand Paul is like a Bill of Rights guy, right? He's like the Constitution candidate. So if for every for every amendment, they could have a fundraiser that day. So like, for the Second Amendment, we can have one campaign, for the first, for the third, and just political pain. Get them on Fox, get Bitcoin out there, get the message of financial freedom out there. And it's all about, America, at the end of the day, America is a beast in a circus, right? It's all a game. It's all a cabaret. And, if it's that way, if it's degraded to that, then participate and have fun to some extent, or, live completely off the grid. And anything in between kind of sucks.
Well put, as always. Always great to talk to you, Julia. I know you just announced basically today. It hasn't even been announced by the Libertarian Party of Canada yet, but I believe by the time this video goes live, it should be. So you probably don't have a website or a Facebook page or anything, but why don't you let people know where they can get more information on you and follow your work and everything you do?
BraveTheWorld.com. I'll write up a blog post at least about my intention and my announcement, and then I'll embed this video and whatever else comes up in time. And follow me on Twitter at BraveTheWorld, and you can find me on Facebook, Brave the World.
Yeah, and I should point out too, if you don't want to run as a candidate, if you're in Canada, there's so many other ways you can help. So if you live in the GTA area, the Greater Toronto area, and you really like what we're trying to do, Julia is going to need a lot of help. You're going to have to actually be knocking on doors and stuff. This is the political system. Yeah. It's really bizarre. And, if there's a bunch of libertarians out there who really believe in what Julia is doing or what any of us are doing, she could use some people to help. Well, donate.
I'm allergic to paperwork, so if you're not allergic, you can help me.
Yeah, there's so many ways you can help. As well, donate. There's going to be, to put up those campaign posters. These are just things I never even thought about doing until we talked to Tim last night. But he said that's what the stuff that really works. It's just those stupid posters. Down and dirty. Yeah, and then we're knocking on doors and stuff, which it just seems weird to me with the internet today that you still have to do those things. But he says it really works. So to put together a bunch of signs is going to cost money, and Julia's not a wealthy person by any means, from what I can tell. So any sort of donation at all, and I don't know, we haven't even set up any of this stuff yet. I've been just telling people.
This is like down the line.
yeah, we're just getting started.
I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah, like the election's in October, so we'll have to sort of, if we're
There's
going to really make, if we're
bureaucracy. There's bureaucracy with that, right?
yeah, there's a lot of bureaucracy. It's really dirty and nasty, and we don't
it
enjoy
sucks.
it. We're not doing this because it's easy or it's something that we really want to do. We're doing it because we feel we have to do something to shake up the system. And of course, a lot of people have said, I would never vote. Well. If we can get a bunch of libertarians elected, that just brings the libertarians to a bigger platform. All of a sudden, they're sitting in that room of thieves and criminals in Ottawa saying very libertarian things to all the press outside who are always standing there with their cameras wanting to hear what politicians have to say. That just brings this up a notch, and it brings the
Political
communication.
pain.
Yeah,
And
let's bring the
remember,
pain.
This is how you think of it. Your vote for the Libertarian Party is just a troll on all the other parties. So let's get some troll armies going.
Awesome. Yeah. See, all these sort of things are so fun to think about, and all these ideas that we just have off the top of our head. Let's troll the system,
That's how I think of it.
Yeah, I know you're very ghost in the machine type, disrupt the system sort of a person, which I really like. And we're going to have a million great ideas. It's going to be fun. So I hope a lot of you guys join us. We're still anarchists. We're not going to do anything that initiates violence against anyone, including in the political system. So we're sort of the ghost outside of the machine here. And so don't think of it as like I'm voting for a politician or for more government or even less government. Just think of it as disrupting the system. And that's something I think a lot of anarchists can get behind.
Vote for yourself.
Absolutely. All right, so that's it for Anarchast. Another great episode. And so another way you can help, just share, subscribe to these videos. Get this information out there. We got to start talking. We can't just sit in our own echo chambers anymore. You can ignore politics, but it's not ignoring you. And it's just getting worse and worse. And so let's just get out there as much as possible and try to shake up the system. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy.
Brave the world.